Hi, this is a somewhat unplanned video. I kind of decided about halfway through the project that I would turn it into a video. I thought someone actually might be interested in the results. It's not particularly scientific, and you may notice that towards the end there's a driver update, so I'm using a slightly different driver. Doesn't affect the results, but as I said, it's not particularly scientific, but hope you're interested. So this all started when I was playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which you can see is a stunning looking video game. I was using the mini ITX build that I put together earlier this year. I'll put a link of that build into the description below. Now, I was struggling to maintain 60 frames per second at medium settings, so I decided to run the in-game benchmark to see what the issue was. So you can see that I've got the settings at 1920 by 1080, and then after running the benchmark we can see that I've got a frame rate, or an average frame rate, of 62 frames per second. But if we have a closer look, we'll see that I'm actually GPU bound by 91%. Now at 1080p that isn't actually very good. So I went onto a famous auction site and picked up a GTX 1070 Mini for £230 to replace my GTX 1060 3GB, which I sold after delivery and costs for £112. So I ran the tests again, this time with the GTX 1070, and you can see we had an average frame rate of 83 frames per second, and we're only GPU bound 34% of the time, so that's a much better result. But I'm not going to stop there. The next test is at 1440p. At 1440p we averaged 64 frames per second and we were GPU bound 88% of the time. But there was one big difference. While in actual gameplay I wasn't noticing any stutters or any drops below 60 frames per second at medium settings, so it was a lot more stable using the GTX 1070. Maybe it's because of the VRAM we're having or utilising 8GB instead of 3GB with the 1060, but it was certainly far better and far more playable. But we don't stop there. There was something else that I noticed. While there were transitions within the game, so a transition to a cutscene or a transition from one scene to another, there was an ever so slightly small stutter, and it got me thinking this wasn't a CPU or GPU problem. I was pretty sure that this was a memory problem, and to ascertain if that was the case I opened up hardware info and ran the benchmark again. So if we look at the column that's marked current and go down to physical memory available, we'll see that there is just over 6GB of memory that is currently available. And if you move over to maximum, you can see that once we've run the actual benchmark, that we've used all available memory. So that means we're into the realms of disk swapping. Now I did look into more detail how much memory Shadow of the Tomb Raider actually uses, and it seems like it tops out at over 10GB of RAM. So with that in mind, I went out and bought some more memory. So here we have 16GB of Corsair Vengeance memory to replace 8GB of G-Skill memory. Now it was a real tight fit, but I managed to get it all in there and up and running again. For the final time we ran the benchmark at 1440p with 16GB of RAM, and we gained a whole massive 1 frame extra. So it now averages at 65 frames per second at 1440p. But the key difference now is when we're transitioning between scenes or cutscenes, it no longer stutters. It's super smooth gameplay. We now have 1080p Ultra or 1440p medium settings at a super smooth 60 plus frames per second. We're no longer dipping below that magical 60 frames per second. Now, to achieve this super smooth gameplay, it's cost me a total of £137, which I think is a really good deal. Okay, that's it for the video. I hope it was of interest to someone somewhere out there. Thanks for watching.